Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to the That's Ricky's Gaming channel, and this will be part 2 of Apex Legends Season 21 Weapons Breakdown. And in this video, I'll be going over the heavy weapons, the energy weapons, and the care package weapons. If you have not seen the part 1 of the weapons breakdown, the link will be in the description down below, where I go over the sniper weapons, the shotgun weapons, and the light weapons. And also in this video, I will be ranking the weapons at the end of the video, so stick around for that. And if you do enjoy the video, like, comment, share, subscribe. And without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So just as a recap, we'll be testing the headshot damage, body shot damage, and limb shot damage per bullet and the totals. We'll be testing those damages on the weapons with and without attachments. And we'll also be doing a range test from close range, mid-range, and long range. Alright, so the first heavy weapon we'll be testing is the flatline, and this will be without attachments. So we're going to get straight into the headshot damage for the flatline. So for the headshot damage, the flatline does 29 on white, 25 on blue, and 23 on purple. And as for the body shots, it does 18. And the limb shots, it does 14. So for the flatline, without attachments, we get these totals. So now we'll get into the attachments for the flatline. The flatline doesn't have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, which makes the bullets go from 20 to 30, which gives us these totals. Alright, now it's time to test the flatline's range. The flatline at close range is great. At close range, the flatline's recoil pattern is really easy to control, which makes the hipfire much more consistent. The flatline at mid-range is also great. At this range, you get a really consistent damage output. The recoil pattern is also comfortable at this range, and is surprisingly well balanced and stable. Now the flatline, however, at long range is okay. The flatline does enough damage, and it does have access to those bigger optics to extend its range, but at long range it becomes less stable and the recoil pattern becomes much more wild. Alright, so that wraps up the flatline, so now we're moving on to the next weapon, the hemlock. So we're going to be starting out with the hemlock without attachments. So for the headshot damage, the hemlock is doing 32 on white, 28 on blue, and 25 on purple. Now for the body shot damage on the hemlock, it's doing 20, and for the limb shots, it's 15. So this burst weapon is giving us these totals. Now for the hemlock and its attachments, it doesn't come with a hop-up, but it does come with a magazine, which increases the bullets from 18 to 30, which gives us these totals. Now to test the range of the hemlock. The hemlock from close range is great. It has nice damage and a high fire rate regardless of it being a burst weapon. The hemlock from mid-range is great. The recoil pattern from this range is comfortable, the fire rate is high, the damage is good. It's overall great for mid-range. The hemlock from long range is also great. The recoil pattern is still very comfortable. It has access to those bigger optics, and because it's so stable, you can even put it in single fire, which makes it more versatile. Alright, so that was the range test for the hemlock, and now we're moving on to the next burst weapon, which is the prowler. So without attachments, let's get into the headshot damage for the prowler. So since each burst is 5 bullets, the headshot damage is 90 on white, 85 on blue, and 80 on purple. Now the body shot damage per burst is 75, and the limb shot damage per burst is 60. So with all that damage, we get these totals. Now for the attachments, the prowler does not come with a hop-up, but it does come with a mag, which increases the bullets from 20 to 35, which gives us these totals. Now it's on to the range test for the prowler. The prowler doing 75 damage per burst and having amazing hipfire makes it great at close range. Its recoil pattern is also very comfortable as well from this range. Even at mid-range, the prowler is still great. The recoil pattern is still easy to control, and it still has a very consistent damage output, while also being very stable. As soon as we get within the long range, the prowler becomes immediate trash. The recoil from it being a burst weapon makes it very difficult to control, and the prowler's damage starts to drop off significantly. And ultimately, it's just not the best option from long range. And we're all done with the prowler. Now it's time to move on to the next weapon, the 30-30. Alright, so we're going to be testing the 30-30 without attachments. We'll also be testing its unique feature that allows it to charge its shots as you aim down sights. So uncharged, the 30-30 is doing 62 on white, 54 on blue, and 49 on purple. Now for the 30-30's charged headshot damage, it's doing 85 on white, 73 on blue, and 67 on purple. An uncharged body shot does 39, and an uncharged limb shot is 33. Now if the 30-30 is charged, the body shots will do 53, and the limb shots will do 45, which gives us these totals, charged and uncharged. So for the attachments, the 30-30 doesn't have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, which increases the bullets from 6 to 10. So that gives us these numbers, charged and uncharged. Alright, now it's time to test the 30-30's range. So for close range, the 30-30 is okay. The fire rate is okay, the damage is decent, and the hip fire is average. At mid-range, the 30-30 is great. The fire rate is more suited for this range, and with more distance means more time to charge your shots, which also means more damage. Now at long range, the 30-30 is also great. You have much more time to line up and charge your shots if necessary. And with those bigger optics, the 30-30 becomes very easy to use at long range, while also doing good damage. And that's been the 30-30, now it's time to move on to the next weapon, the Rampage. So without attachments, let's go over the Rampage's damages. Anyway, so for the Rampage, the headshot damage on white helmet is 36, on blue helmet is 33, and on purple helmet is 31. A body shot from the Rampage is 26, and a limb shot from the Rampage is 22. And with those damages, the Rampage gives us these totals. So for attachments, the Rampage doesn't have a hop-up, but it does have a special feature along with his magazine. That's right, this is the other weapon that can utilize consumables. In this case, it can be charged by a thermite. The thermite doesn't increase the damage, it just increases the fire rate. So since the magazine increases the bullets from 28 to 40, we get these totals. And now for the Rampage's range test. Up close, the Rampage is great. The hipfire can be inconsistent, but his fire rate and damage make up for it, especially with a thermite. The Rampage from mid-range is great. Its recoil pattern is really easy to control and is very comfortable, which can lead to very promising damage. The Rampage from long range is great. It has access to the bigger optics, but regardless, it still has really good range. The fire rate is adaptable so you can hit your shots, and the damage is still consistently high from that range. Alright, and that was the Rampage. Now it's time to move on to the last heavy weapon, the car. And just as additional information, the car can take light ammo, heavy ammo, light mags, and heavy mag. Even though it takes light ammo, it registers as a heavy weapon. So besides that, let's get into the damage without the attachments. So the car is doing 14 on white, 14 on blue, and 13 on purple. And as for the body shots, the car is doing 12, and as for the limb shots, it's doing 10. And that gives us these totals. Regardless of what ammo type you choose for the car, it does not have a hop-up, but it can accept a magazine whether it's light or heavy, which increases the bullets from 19 to 26, which gives us these numbers. Alright, now it's time for the range test. The car from close range is great. It seems since it's the only SMG that doesn't have a laser sight, it doesn't seem to need it because the hipfire is amazing, and it has a very fast fire rate. The car from mid-range is okay. It does have amazing strafe speed, but the damage can be inconsistent, and the recoil is a little less comfortable from that range. The car from long range is trash. The bullets are small, so the damage becomes inconsistent, and the car's recoil doesn't help since it's so difficult to control. And that was the last of the heavy weapons with the car, and now it's time to move on to the energy weapons, starting with the Havoc. Alright, so this is the Havoc's headshot damage without attachments. So the Havoc is doing 29 on white helmet, 25 on blue helmet, and 23 on purple helmet. Alright, so next is the body and limb shots. So the body shots are 18, and the limb shots are 14. So with those numbers, we get these totals. So for attachments, the Havoc does come with a hop-up, but it only increases the fire rate startup. So since the magazine increases the bullets from 24 to 36, we get these numbers. And now it's time to test the Havoc's range. The Havoc from up close is great. It has great hip fire, the fire rate is really good, and the recoil is easy to control. The Havoc from mid-range is great. Its fire rate, along with its really good damage, is very consistent from this range, and the recoil pattern is still comfortable. So the Havoc from long range is okay. The recoil pattern becomes much more difficult to control, and even though it does have access to those bigger optics, it just doesn't seem to be as stable as the other assault rifles. And that's it for the Havoc, so now it's time to move on to the next weapon, the L-Star. So this is going to be the L-Star without its attachments. So the L-Star's headshot damage is 24 on white, 21 on blue, and 20 on purple. And for the body shot damage, it does 17, and for the limb shot damage, it does 14. And since the L-Star has 25 bullets before it overheats without attachments, it gives us these totals. Now as for the L-Star's attachments, it does not have a hop-up, but it does have a magazine, which increases the bullets from 25 to 31 when it overheats, so that gives us these numbers. Now to test the L-Star's range. From close range, the L-Star is great. The hip fire is really good, and the recoil is super easy to control. The L-Star from mid-range is also great. The recoil pattern is so easy to control and the bullets are massive, so the L-Star's damage output is very consistent. The L-Star from long range is okay. It really benefits from the massive bullet size, and it does have access to those bigger optics, but the recoil is just too difficult to control from this range, which can lead to more overheats. Alright, and that's enough of the L-Star, so now it's time to move on to the next energy weapon, the triple take. So we'll be going over the triple take without its attachments. So for the headshot damage, it's doing 102 on white, 87 on blue, and 81 on purple. And for the body shots, it's doing 63, and for the limb shots, it's doing 57. So that gives us these totals. So for the triple takes attachments, it has the hop up, which is the boosted loader, and a magazine. And when you're within the last 3 shots in the triple take, it increases the magazine from 10 to 12, which gives us these numbers. Alright, now it's time to get into the range test for the triple take. So the triple take at close range is great. It has the choke of a shotgun, it has the recoil pattern of an SMG, and the hipfire is consistent. It's great. The triple take at mid-range is great. It's not difficult at all to use at this range. It's very stable, the damage is good, and the fire rate is good. The triple take at long range is great. Having a choke on a marksman weapon, it makes it feel as if it's easier to hit the shots. Bullet drop isn't too bad, and because of those bigger optics, it seems that the range can be extended even further. And that's been the triple take. So now it's time to move on to the next energy weapon, the Volt. So this will be the Volt without its attachments. So the headshot damage for the Volt is 18 on white, 17 on blue, and 16 on purple. And for the body shots, the Volt's doing 15, and for the limb shots is doing 12. And with those damages, we struck up these numbers. So for the Volt's attachments, it doesn't have a hop up, but it does have a magazine, which extends the bullets from 19 to 26. So with that, we get these totals. The Volt at close range is great. The hip fire is really good. It does really good damage for an SMG. And the recoil pattern is really easy to control. The Volt at mid-range is also great. It's very stable and the recoil pattern is so easy to control, and the damage is still really good. The Volt from long range is trash. The bullets are small, the magazine isn't big enough, and along with that, it doesn't have the optics to hit from that range. Alright, and that's been the Volt. So now we're moving on to the last energy weapon, which is the Nemesis. So before we get into the Nim without its attachments, if you like this skin, I'll have a link in the description down below for the video that shows off the Nemesis skin and the bundle it was a part of. But yeah, so the headshot damage for the Nemesis is 104 on white, 88 on blue, and 80 on purple. And as for the body shots, it's doing 64, and for the limb shots, it's doing 48. So with those damages, we get these totals. So for the attachments, the Nemesis doesn't have a hop up, but it does have an extended mag, so the bullets go from 20 to 32, which gives us these totals. Now it's time to test if the Nim got that range. The Nemesis at close range is great. The hip fire is accurate, and with its charge up feature, its fire rate allows it to compete with even SMGs. The Nemesis for mid range is great. The recoil is really easy to control, the stability is there, the damage is there. It's just really comfortable at this range. The Nemesis at long range is great. As a burst weapon, it has great stability still. The recoil is so comfortable, and it has access to those bigger optics, so the range on it is pretty adaptable. And that was the last floor weapon. So now it's time to move on to the care package weapons, starting out with the Vid. So since the care package weapons already have all their attachments, we'll just be going over them and the damage. So normally for a gold shotgun bolt, when you slide, you get 1 shot reloaded, whether your weapon is holstered or not. But for the Vid, if you have less than 7 shots in the mag, when you slide, you get 2 shots reloaded. And this is also the case whether or not your weapon is holstered. And the Vid also has hammer points, so we can go ahead and start testing the damage. So for the headshot damage, it's going to be 56 regardless of the helmet. It only says 57 for white helmet because of the white armor. But as you can see with the other helmets, it's 56. It's going to be the same. And for the body shots, it's 48. And for the limb shots, it's going to be 48 as well. So for unshielded headshots, it's going to be 64. For unshielded body shots, it's 56. And for unshielded limb shots, it's going to be 56 as well. So I got the average of the damage with and without hammer points, and that gives us these totals. So for close range, the Vid is great. The fire rate is unbelievable, the damage is really good, and it has the hammer points too. The EVA for mid-range is just okay. Anything further than 15 to 20 meters is really outside of his range, regardless of the fire rate. The EVA from long range is trash. The further away you are, the more spread between the pellets, which leads to inconsistent damage. Alright, and that's about it for the EVA. So now it's time to move on to the next care package weapon, which is the Devotion. So for the attachments, the Devotion has a turbocharger. It doesn't increase the damage, it just speeds up the initial startup for the fire rate. So with the headshot damage, it does 22 on white, 20 on blue, and 19 on purple. Now as for the body shot damage, it does 16 to the body, and for limb shots, it does 14. So with all that damage, it gives us these totals. So the Devo at close range is great. The weapon's ability to get faster over time makes it really dangerous. The recoil is easy to control, and the hip fire is nuts. The Devotion from mid-range is also great. Recoil pattern is still easy to control and is stable, so the damage output is going to be very consistent. The Devotion from long range is okay. It has a lot of bullets, and it also has access to those bigger optics. Ultimately, the recoil pattern makes the Devotion too unstable at this range. Alright, that's been the Devotion, so now it's on to the next care package weapon, which is the bow check, or the bow. So for the bow's attachments, it has a hop-up which alters its hip fire, and it doesn't have a magazine. So yeah, anyway, for the headshot damage, the bow does 112 on white, 96 on blue, and 88 on purple. So for the body shot, it does 70, and for the limb shots, it does 63. So the hop-up makes the hip fire do 98 on white, 98 on blue, and 91 on purple. And for the body shots, it does 84, and for the limb shots, it does 84 as well. So that gives us these ridiculous numbers because it literally doesn't have to be reloaded. Yes, it's ridiculous. Alright, let's move on to the range test. The bow from close range is great. If I was to compare it to other weapons, it has the fire rate of a 30-30 with the damage of a sentinel. It's definitely more dangerous than you think up close. The bow from mid-range is great, and hitting for that much at that fire rate makes it really dangerous from mid-range. The bow from long range is great. The recoil is easy to control because it's a bow, it doesn't have any recoil. It practically has no bullet drop either. Alright, now it's time to move on to the last care package weapon, which is the Kraber. Alright, so the Kraber's simple. There is no attachments. It has 4 bullets in the clip and 12 bullets total. So with that, let's get on to the headshot damage. So the Kraber does 252 on white, 210 on blue, and 189 on purple. It does 140 to the body, and it does 112 to the limbs. So with that, these are the totals based off the numbers. So now let's test the Kraber's range. The Kraber from close range is okay. It only depends on whether or not you hit that first shot, and where you hit that first shot. The Kraber from mid-range is great. This isn't exactly the range the Kraber is best at, but it still does good damage here. The Kraber at long range is great. This is literally its domain, its kingdom. It doesn't have recoil, it does a lot of damage, it's stable, it's great at long range. Alright, and that was the Kraber. And that's the last weapon. I know the throwing knife is in the firing range, No. So now it's time for the best part. We're going to rank the weapons. So I feel the best way to do this is to rank the weapon classes and the weapons within the weapon classes first. And that way it won't be as complicated to understand the ranking list. And that way it can be as non-biased as possible, because trust me, I have some favorite weapons too. So starting off with the assault rifles, I got the R301 last. And the reason being is, the R301 with attachments does roughly around the same damage every other assault rifle does without attachments. The R301 does have an easy recoil pattern, and it also has a really good fire rate. But at close to mid-range, the other assault rifles just do more damage, so I put it at 5th. Next up is the Flatline. I put the Flatline 4th because the Flatline with or without attachments is a very good weapon. But when it comes to an assault rifle being fully kitted, the Flatline and the Hemlock tie for second lowest bullets in the mag. And the Hemlock does way more damage than the Flatline does. And its range isn't as impressive, so that's why I put it at 4th. In 3rd place, I got the Havoc. Now the reason I have the Havoc 3rd is simple. It has a slight edge on fire rate and it has a slight edge on the ammo capacity. The Havoc and the Flatline both do the same damage per bullet, and their ranges are very similar, but besides that, fire rate and ammo capacity is why the Havoc's 3rd. Now this was close, but I have the Nemesis 2nd. The Nemesis has great range, great damage, and a great recoil pattern. Way better than the Flatline, the Havoc, and the R301, but only does less damage by a little bit. but it's still less damage. So that's why I have the Hemlock at number 1. You can use the Hemlock at any range. You can use it on burst fire, single fire. You can put any scope on it, especially since the iron sight's kind of trash. And the gun is consistently good with or without attachments. And that's it for the assault rifles, so now it's time to move on to the submachine guns. And in last place, I know you hate to see it, but the R9 is at 5th place for submachine guns. It has an amazing fire rate for submachine guns, but the range just isn't as good as the other submachine guns, and the damage is just booty butt cheeks. So the next weapon at 4th place is the car. The car and the R9 have a lot of similarities, but with the car it doesn't need a laser sight, so the hip fire is automatically good all the time, and it does more damage than the R9, so I'm placing it in 4th. At 3rd, I have the Volt. The Volt is good, it has really good range, the recoil pattern is really easy to control, but at that fire rate, the damage could be slightly better, so it's going to be in 3rd. In 2nd place, I have the Alternator. And surprisingly, I actually have a couple reasons why I put the Alternator above the Volt. For starters, the Alternator and the Volt have similar fire rates. The Alternator and the Volt have really good recoil, but the Alternator does more damage with or without disruptor rounds, and when you add the disruptor rounds, it does even more damage. The Alternator can have up to 27 bullets, while the Volt only has up to 26, and yes, that does make a difference. So that's the reason why I'm putting the Alternator in 2nd place. And in 1st place, I got the Prowler. It literally does an insane amount of damage for an SMG. The range is just as good as any other SMG, and the fire rate is disgusting. The Prowler is number 1. And that's it for the SMGs. Now it's time to move on to the LMGs. I guess I'll just explain now. All the care package weapons will not be considered in this list. But yeah, I have the Spitfire in last place. And don't get me wrong, the Spitfire is a good weapon. It has a lot of bullets, the recoil isn't too difficult to control, and the hipfire is actually really good. In 2nd place, I got the L-Star, and the reason why I have the L-Star over the Spitfire is because the L-Star has one advantage. You don't have to reload. And the L-Star's recoil is just as easy as the Spitfire's recoil, but I feel like the L-Star's is a little bit easier to control. And the L-Star's bullet size is way bigger than the Spitfire's, so that's why I got it at 2nd. Alright, so I'm gonna tell you why I think the Rampage is the top of the list. The best LMG to pick up outside of a care package. For starters, the lowest damage you could do with the Rampage is 22. That is absolutely insane. It's great for mid-range, long range. You could charge it with a thermite, so it could be good at close range as well. You feel like the hip fire isn't as consistent. It checks all the boxes. And that was the LMGs, so now it's time to move on to the marksman weapons. Alright, so in 3rd place, I got the G7. And the reason why I have the G7 in 3rd place is because the G7 is a really good mid-range weapon, but long range, it feels as if the bullets are just not big enough to shoot from that far. And on top of that, it has the lowest damage per bullet out of all the marksman weapons. It's still a solid weapon though. It doesn't do as much damage as the other marksman weapons, but the fire rate makes up for it. So I have the 30-30 in 2nd because it was just recently nerfed. They did a lot of nerfs to it, but it's also really because for a marksman weapon, it has really bad bullet drop. And the time between the bullet getting fired and the bullet hitting is very noticeable. But other than that, it's still a solid weapon. And at number 1, I got the triple take. Not only is the triple take so good from long range, it has a hop up and it does the most headshot damage out of the 3, but it is so good up close. You can get away with using the triple take as a shotgun, and that's why I have it at number 1. And that was it for the marksman weapons, so now it's time to move on to the sniper rifles. Alright, so I got the charge rifle in 3rd, not because everybody hates the gun or anything like that. I put it in 3rd because regardless of the damage boost you get from shooting it from very far away, by the time you finish charging up the shot to shoot it, you could have shot in multiple shots with a different weapon. And out of all the sniper weapons, it's definitely the worst weapon to swap to when your primary weapon is empty. So it's 3rd. So in 2nd place, I got the longbow, and the reason why I had the longbow in 2nd place is because it takes too many body shots for the sniper to kill somebody. And I understand it's a sniper rifle, I'm supposed to go for the head. But realistically, if I do so happen to get some body shots or limb shots, it's 55s and 44s. That's really low for a sniper weapon, especially when there's weapons that hit for that much, but at a faster fire rate. Or it's the same fire rate, but it hits for more damage. But it's still a good sniper weapon. So I have the longbow at 2nd. Alright, so the reason why I have the Sentinel, aka the Baby Kraber, at number 1, not only is the damage good on its own, and also has a very decent fire rate compared to the other sniper rifles, but you could charge up the Sentinel and it can do even more damage. The only way you can one-shot somebody is with a Kraber or with a Sentinel, and you can one-shot somebody with a Sentinel. It would have to be them in white armor with a white helmet, and your Sentinel charged. It's very situational, but the fact there's only 2 ways you can one-shot somebody in the game, and the Sentinel's one of them, I'll take it. Sentinel's number 1. Alright, and that was the sniper rifle, so now we're moving on to the pistols. I already know I made a bunch of people mad, but the reason why I put the RE 3rd is just because it needs too much. When you fly out the dropship and you land on an RE, that could be one of the worse situations, because if you don't hit every single bullet, and there's only 16 bullets that do 12 damage per bullet, by the way, you're gonna lose the fight. And yes, the fire rate is cool, like I understand, it's a good weapon, but it needs at least a blue mag on it. Especially when people play characters like Revenant or any character that takes more bullets than normal, you can be put in a sticky situation. So I have the RE third. Alright, so the reason why I have the P20 second is because with or without attachments, the P20 is dependable. But when it does get attachments, it's super good. Yes, it's not an automatic weapon, so it's like, oh, I have to keep pulling the trigger, but it does good damage. It does good damage. You get all the perks of a pistol. And on top of that, when you break someone's armor and you have hammer points, it hits for 27. It hits for 27. That's more than a bullet out of the Rampage. That's why it's number 2. Alright, now number 1, we got the Wingman. There's not really much to say about the Wingman that's not already known. The bullets are big. It hits hard. At the very least, it hits for 40. And yes, it did get nerfed by not having a magazine on it, but it's 6 shots that you can shoot from practically anywhere. So yeah, the Wingman is number 1. Alright, so that was the pistols. So now it's time to move on to the final weapon class, the shotguns. Alright, so this may not matter to any of y'all, but surprisingly, this was a very difficult decision. But I have the Mosam at 3rd. And it's at 3rd because it needs the shotgun bolt and it needs the hammer points. It needs those 2 things to be great. But it's good with like a white bolt and no hammer points, but it feels as if the Mosam relies more on its fire rate and its range more than its damage. Because honestly, I like the Mosam from range than up close and personal like the other shotguns. So it seems as if it's better every reason besides being a shotgun, so that's why it's 3rd. So I got the massive 2nd place because it's really reliable. Whether you have attachments on it or not, it's going to do the exact same damage every time you pick it up. It doesn't have a hop up, so it's not being held back by needing a hop up, but it's also not getting better because it doesn't have a hop up. Besides the shotgun bolt, you're getting the same gun early game to end game. So with that, I got the massive 2nd. Now, it's pretty obvious that the Peacekeeper is going to be 1st place for shotguns, but for some reasons is, for 1, it shoots the most pellets out of all the shotguns, and 2, the disruptor rounds allow it to do more damage the more armor someone has on if you have disruptor rounds. And that is why the Peacekeeper is number 1. Alright, so we're done with the weapon classes, so now it's time to rank all the weapons. I just want to give a heads up that all of these weapons, they're all good in the manner at which they're supposed to be used in. During the range test and the damage testing and comparing the numbers, I realized some of the guns aren't as bad as I thought they were, and some of the guns aren't as good as I thought they were. So with that said, it's finally time to rank the guns. So in the 25th spot, I got the R9. In the 24th spot, I got the CAR. In the 23rd spot, I have the charge rifle. In the 22nd spot, I have the G7. In the 21st spot, I have the 3030. In the 20th spot, I have the longbow. In the 19th spot, I have the Mosam. In the 18th spot, I have the RE. In the 17th spot, I have the P20. In the 16th spot, I have the Mastiff. In the 15th spot, I have the Sentinel. In the 14th spot, I have the R301. In the 13th spot, I have the Volt. In the 12th spot, Alternator. And in the 11th spot, Flatline. Now it's time for the top 10. Top 10 is the Peacekeeper. Top 9, Prowler. Top 8, Triple Take. Top 7, Spitfire. Top 6, Wingman. Alright, now the top 5. L-Star's top 5. The Havoc's top 4. The Rampage is top 3. The Nemesis is top 2. And the Hemlock is in the top spot. That's right, based off the testing and with and without the attachments, the range test, all of it leads to this being the best and the worst guns in Apex. Now, if we were to count the care package weapons, the bow would be the best, the Kraber would be second, and then the Hemlock, the Nemesis, and then it would be the Devo, then the Rampage, Havoc, and then after the L-Star, it would be the Eve 8. But yeah, that's the rankings of the weapons in Apex Legends Season 21. I hope y'all enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you did, and let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with the list, and if you disagree, where would you rank the weapons? But yeah, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.